just come together. It's safe. Speak your struggles. Get inspired. Get motivated. Just lay it all out. You know, I wanted a place that I could create for people like myself, because in 2016, I didn't know social media was a tool for recovery. I had no idea. You know, that wasn't something that I understood. So I wanted to create something and bring that to the table, and that's exactly what I did. I was blessed enough to be able to do something like that. You know, so I'm just, like I told them yesterday, I'm fired up to be here. You know, I'm not here to impress you. I'm here because I am here.
Amen.
You know, recovery doesn't have one face. We all have different paths, different pains, different roads that led us here. You know, there is no magical method to getting sober, and I think people have this misconception that you need to do X, Y, and Z. You don't. You know, and for example, I speak from the heart myself, and I don't say this for everybody, but I have almost a decade clean and sober. I've never had a sponsor. I don't recommend that route, but it's what's worked for me. You know, and I think what brings us into sobriety, into recovery, is we get tired of our own bullshit. For me, I got tired of my own bullshit. I got tired of chaos. I got tired of waking up sick every day. I got tired of the shame. I got tired of waking up going, where's my wallet? Is my car in the driveway? And how did I get home last night? You know, I think for some of us, the way we found recovery is simple. You know, some of us, we just had enough of chaos, like I just said. Some of us, we had to be put in silver bracelets. Some of us had to stand behind steel bars on a concrete floor. You know, but some of us knew that there were only two options to this game. You either get clean and get sober, or you get buried. No, there is no other way. But I think the same truth that connects us all is we all got sick and tired of being sick and tired. For myself, I was tired of the hospital visits. You know, the nurses and the doctors became my family. The ambulances was my personal vehicle. The hospital was my home. I was tired of being in comas. You know, waking up. I remember this one time I was in the hospital, 2-day coma. I come out, there's a nurse standing over me. I don't even remember making it to the hospital. She's drawing blood. She's like, Mr. Anthony, just need to know where you are. Well, I mean, I'm in a hospital. She's like, yeah, 2 days have passed and you've been trying to draw your own blood. And you think in that moment, you know, you got 2 days that have passed, no recollection of it at all. That makes you want to change, right? No. I stayed there for another 7 days. As soon as I got out, I went 1 block over to the liquor store. Grabbed my Yukon Jack like I always did and headed on home. You know, I've had, like I said, I've been in comas, I've had seizures, I've had a heart attack before I was even 28 years old. It's by the grace of God that I'm standing here today speaking in front of y'all. I didn't do this on my own. I think that's a lot of us though, you know. We're all here in this room. We've all struggled, we've all suffered. But like we're still here. We've made it through the chaos, we've made it through the destruction. Believe what you want to believe. You know, I believe in God, and I believe God has kept me here for that reason. To be here, to be able to talk to y'all, to make an impact, to breathe life into y'all, you know, to make an impact and touch your heart. Because that's what this is about.
Yes.
It's about community, it's about connection. You know, there's something that's a hard truth that a lot of people need to understand is every single one of us, and anybody who's ever suffered from addiction, we eventually will all stop using and stop drinking. The only difference is people like myself and people like y'all, we still have a heartbeat to tell our story. Not everybody gets that same opportunity. You know, there are people this morning that didn't wake up. We're grateful that we did. We're grateful to be here. We're grateful to be in this room, surrounded by brothers and sisters who understand the struggle. You know, it's one of those things that when I look at a fellow addict and I say, man, I understand. It's not bullshit talking. It's not just, yeah, I get it. I've been in the trenches where you've been. I feel your pain. I know your struggle. I mean it when I say I understand. You know, for me, I think the moment that I had to surrender and I realized I needed to change my life back in 2015. So I'll tell you a little story, we'll rewind the tape a little bit. So I had the day off. And I'm going to tell you the story the way it was related to me because I have no recollection of this entire day. I had the day off from work, drinking, taking my pain pills, just living like I've always lived. You know, and I was married at the time to my wife at that time. And from what I've been told, I passed out on the couch, took a little surprise nap, ended up waking up, and I ended up walking around my living room doing circles, talking to people that weren't there, having full conversations to people that didn't exist. You know, at the time, my wife at the time and I, we lived with her family, and her family lived upstairs. And she was worried. You know, she's like, I tried to talk to you, like you weren't there, like there was nobody home, the lights were on, but you weren't there. She goes, I got scared and I went upstairs and I got my father. Her father came down, he said some words to me. I ended up leaning into him, I supposedly said something to him, left the room. I came back with my handgun and pointed it right to his head. No recollection of that at all. What I do recall from that night is sitting on the edge of my bed with my father-in-law screaming at me, my wife at the time crying, and my parents there shoving all the clothes they could into a duffel bag. Now, if you've ever woken up from a blackout state, you are very confused. And if you've ever woken up and people just screaming at you, you have no idea what the hell is happening, I went into defense mode because honestly, all of us, we've all been in that survival mode where all we do is we hear a tone change and we're boom, defending. You know, it's wired in us, unfortunately. And it's something, I'll be honest with you, I'm trying to unwire as we speak today. But I remember getting kicked out of my house and I went to live with my mom for a little bit. And I remember a couple of years prior scrolling FB. And I had a friend that I used to get reckless with. And he had a post of this little teeny chip with number 2 on it. Started to read some stuff, and at the time I'm like, man, it's total BS. I'm like, I'm grateful to be sober and God, I'm like, whatever, I'll get you sober. But there's a reason God allowed me to see that post that day. Because I remember it years later. I called my buddy, his name was Tim. I called him up 10:30 at night at my mom's house. I said, bro, I'm tired of living like this. I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired, bro. I saw you got 2 years. Like, I want to talk to you, man. Kid came to my house with a big book. 10:30 at night. Opened it up, read some things out of it. I was like, all right, man, I get it. You know, to me, I didn't know what the big book was. I thought he was just reading some alcoholic Bible.
That's what it is.
And before he left, he looked at me and he said, I'm going to give you 2 phone numbers. If you're serious about getting the help you need, call one of them in the morning. But I remember very vaguely something he said to me. He said, if you're not serious, don't call. Don't waste your time. Don't waste my time. Don't waste the rehab center's time. And sure as hell, don't waste the bed for somebody who actually wants to change their life. You know, so a couple weeks passed because I wasn't ready yet. I continued to live recklessly. Called my wife at the time and said, Tim gave me these numbers, I need you to call one. She ended up calling one. By God's grace, the detox center in Haverhill, Massachusetts had 1 bed left. She packed my bag, off to Haverhill I went. I was scared, like most of us. And I don't think it's fear that we don't fear change, we fear the unknown. You know, change is hard, but what comes with that? I was afraid the whole way. I was just popping Yukon Jack nips, tossing them out the window. Don't really remember going to detox. I vaguely remember being there for 7 days. I kept a journal the day I showed up. And it's a good reminder to me because when I flipped to that first page of that journal, the first day I was in detox, man, my brain is trying to rewire itself. I have so many words that are crossed out, the withdrawal scribbles. I remember the nurses there trying to feed me medicine and I couldn't even hold pills or a little Dixie cup of water because I'm shaking so bad. I spent 7 days there. From there, they put me in a black Suburban and drove me into the middle of the woods of New Hampshire up in Canterbury. There I spent 31 days in rehab, trying to understand life, trying to understand how do I go about living without what I know. You know, we talk about God race. When I was in rehab, I literally left the day I showed up. Pulled up, went inside. I felt like I was in a cult. Felt weird. I've never lived on my own. I've never lived with other people. I was living in a house with 16 other dudes, sharing bathrooms. Totally uncomfortable. And I remember telling them, I'm going home. I don't belong here. Because in my mind, I didn't feel like I did. You know what I'm saying? For me, y'all are crazy. This is a cult. I'm not part of this. So they called my wife at the time. She came to pick me up. As we're leaving, she looks at me and she goes, I don't know what you're expecting. She's not coming home. My family don't want you there. Your mom don't want you to go back home. Where do you want me to drop you off? And in that moment, that's when I broke down. I completely just broke and begged God to show me a sign. Something. Lord, if you can hear me, show me something. With tears in my eyes, I'll never forget this. We pulled up to this red light. Sitting there, and I'm crying, bawling, just begging God for something. And in that moment, the light turned green. But it's a green light that I've never seen before, and I've never seen again. It was a green U-turn sign. And for me, that was my first ever God wink. That was God speaking to me. Let me tell you, being a decade in sobriety, God speaks to me a lot, and I listen and I see it. Yep. I'm spiritually aware when He speaks to me, and I listen. But I knew what that green sign meant. Baby, bang that U and turn around. That's where you belong. So I did. And I went. And I stayed. And as much as I was uncomfortable, man, nothing grows in your comfort zone. You know, I say this a lot, getting comfortable, being uncomfortable, because that's what recovery is about. You don't get uncomfortable. You know, the rest is really history from there. You know, I got a job, worked at UPS, hustling cardboard, made good money, you know, great benefits, everything was good. But I had something happen just a couple years ago. I ended up getting let go for something that was out of my control. You know, I have my new wife now, Megan, we have 2 kids. And I'm like, what am I going to do now? You know, I have a high school diploma. All I know is warehouse jobs. So I went to go check out this job, this warehouse, and I remember walking through and a miserable look on people's faces, how unhappy they were. And, you know, we all chased the almighty dollar, but in return, like, I knew that wasn't for me anymore. I needed something more. My soul needed something more because I was tired of living this meaningless life. You know, we were in a position where I could work on the sober sessions, I could work on myself, I could work on being a motivational speaker, you know, inspiring people. When I started the sober sessions, it was something small, and I used to get friends that message me, like, man, what you said really like, changed my life, you know, it helped me through my day, I appreciate that, man, can't wait to see what you're going to say next. It made me feel good. And that's when I realized, you know, this is something that sets my soul on fire. This is something that gives me purpose. It's the only thing that makes my heart feel whole. So I was blessed enough with my wife and myself to be able to do this, and she's supported me ever since. And I make it, and it's my everything, you know, it's my baby. I'm in 110%, there's nothing else I do, you know? And similar to what somebody else said earlier, I get messages all the time. There's this one message that will always stand out to me. A couple months ago, this girl reached out to me. She goes, Joel, you don't know me. but I need to tell you something. She goes, you wrote a piece on life and what life means. She goes, I was about 10 minutes away from ending mine. You saved me. She goes, I don't know how to thank you. And without hesitation, the only thing I could tell her is, you don't need to thank me. Well, what can I do? You don't have to do anything. You already did. You're here. That's enough. You know, I think a lot of us in recovery too, we say it a lot, you know, we feel alone, even though we're never alone. But I say this a lot for people to understand. You know, we say we're alone, we feel like we're in the dark, we live in this darkness. Well, the caterpillar has to go through a season of isolation, complete darkness, before it can transform into that beautiful, unique butterfly. You know, a caterpillar is stuck to the ground, moves inch by inch, it takes forever to go from A to B. But when it sits in that darkness, and it sits in that transformation period, and it blooms out of that cocoon, it can take flight and go places it never thought it could go. So if you're online right now, you're watching, or you're here, you're listening, and you feel alone like you're in the dark, like all hope is lost, baby, you in your transformation period. Like you in your season of growth right now. You know, there's something else when I talk about surrendering. I realized when I finally surrendered, something wonderful happened. You know, the anxiety that lived